The first 3 days of NFL free agency have gotten off to a blazing hot start. Your phones have probably been blowing up with notifications from guys like Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Jordan Schultz, if you really want to go there. But we're going to go ahead and break down the biggest winners and losers of free agency so far from a fantasy football perspective. So, fellas, let's start with talking about probably the most important running back signing for fantasy football this offseason thus far, and that is, Cameron, your winner number one, Najee Harris to the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm with you. I think that he is a big winner so far.
Yeah, he didn't sign a multi-year contract. It wasn't huge, gaudy numbers where it guarantees that he's the workhorse back. However, he's going into an offense where Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball, where he's going to want to run the ball even more than last year. They were top 12 in rush attempts last year, but they had to split between J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, right? It wasn't exactly an ideal pairing. J.K. Dobbins played awesome. As a J.K. Dobbins truther, I'm really happy that we finally got to see him come back, look decent. But Gus Edwards was not a good 1B in that offense. So you got to imagine with Najee, they're only going to increase how many rush attempts they have again this season. The offensive line is going to be better than what it was in Pittsburgh. Most places are going to be better than what it was in Pittsburgh. So that's always a plus. And it is just a prove-it deal. Najee's got to prove, hey, if you want another contract, if you want a multi-year contract next year, you've got to do it here. So even if in the draft they do bring someone in, at the very least, he's going to have a healthy split of the backfield. He's going to be fantasy relevant once again.
Yeah, Chargers were top 10 in run play percentage last year, and obviously they boast one of the best offensive lines in the league. What does this do for Najee's fantasy value, Ty? Because at this point, I think people are going to get really, really excited if he does end up being the only running back on this Chargers team.
I would understand it, but and we have to look at J.K. Dobbins as a great example. Obviously, he was splitting time with Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards, I believe, is no longer a part of the team. I think that was announced yesterday. So even if they do bring somebody in, this Greg Roman offense needs these bigger physical running backs to get downhill. Najee Harris, with this offense and how they were able to move the ball downfield last year, Najee Harris could really come through as a top 20 and even I would say like top 15 option because he's going to be the guy on the goal line. He is capable in the receiving game, so it's a legit check down option for Herbert as well. Obviously, we're not going to get the rookie year Najee Harris with Ben Roethlisberger type numbers. But again, I think Najee Harris found the perfect bounce back spot where he can legitimately be a staple for a fantasy team this year.
Yeah, and I really like how you brought up Najee's receiving upside and that element that he brings to this offense as well, because J.K. Dobbins, he was catching, swing passes and screens last year, but that wasn't necessarily an area in which he thrived. The Kamani Vidal experiment didn't exactly work out either. But yeah, from a fantasy football perspective, you get a few more PPR points added on to Najee's total. Dobbins was averaging 14.8 last year. The running back 18 in fantasy points per game. And we're looking at Najee, I think, quietly, it's knocking on the door a top 15 upside. Is that probably the safest way to put it? You're both nodding in agreement?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, honestly, unless they take a Genty or a Marion Hampton, I would say Najee's really in line for early down goal line work, which is on this type of team is really going to be, like you said, knocking on that door of top 15. So I don't think that's a wild statement to say at all. And I think he's going to be a really solid running back too in your fantasy lineups next year.
Yeah, and we'll continue talking about the free agent fallout of all these players as the offseason progresses on with the NFL draft as well. So if you want to stay up to date on all of that, how you see our perspectives on the fantasy landscape shifting, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest episodes are up. I promise. If you subscribe here to the Fellowship, we will keep you entertained all off season long with Dynasty content, with best ball content. Once we get into the heat of summer as well, we'll have all sorts of redraft content as well for you all. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss an episode when it drops. Ty, we'll move on to your first winner here. I think this player has been catching a little bit of flack since his signing, but your winner is Justin Fields. I also really like this signing for him.
Yeah, this may be more for the fantasy sickos out there like us, but you know what? I think a lot of people can look at Justin Fields after what he did in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it wasn't anything, jaw-dropping or otherworldly, but he did lead the team to a winning record, and then Russell Wilson took over, and then we all know how that season ended for them. But Justin Fields landed in the most ideal situation, right? Going to the Jets, he's getting a super young and super talented offensive line that has a top 10 pick that can use that on a Will Campbell, Armand Membu to kind of fill the last piece of the offensive line because Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are no longer with the team. But if they bring in another lineman, that line is complete. And so that works out well for a mobile quarterback like Justin Fields. You do have solid running backs on this roster with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen that can help start a solid run game with this new coaching staff and new system that's coming in from Detroit. And you also have your Ohio State teammate in Garrett Wilson to throw to as well. Now, you do need to give him some more weapons. But again, that's the beauty of having a top 10 pick. That's the beauty of still having some more cap space to spend. But you can use that top 10 pick on a guy like a Tyler Warren. You can use that top 10 pick even on a Ted McMillan, dare I say. Can you guys imagine a Ted McMillan, Garrett Wilson wide receiver duo? Boy, you give everything. Right, it would be something. You give Justin Fields everything he could possibly need to at least be a competent passer of the football. And again, when you talk about fantasy football and Justin Fields, it's kind of dynamite because the dude, again, can produce with his legs. So everything with Justin Fields going to the Jets signals to me that this is going to be another reliable option in fantasy football at the quarterback spot.
I've seen a lot of people talk about his pass attempts per game. I just don't get that part. I'm not excited about Justin Fields' arm. I'm excited about his legs. So the fact that a team is willing to go out and pay him $30 million guaranteed, which Hayden Winks pointed this out, and we can get this tweet on the screen as well. Like this Fields contract with $30 million guaranteed, it's not right. It's not quite the, like Geno Smith, the Sam Darnolds, the Baker Mayfields of the world, right? Where they're getting $50 million guaranteed, but it's also, he's not just getting Gardner Minshew money to come in and be a maybe quarterback for them. Like 30 million is a good amount guaranteed in the Justin Fields to say, you're going to be our guy. You're going to be out on the field. And I think you're right. They just need to supply him with the remaining pieces, whether that's another piece along the offensive line, whether that is another receiver to throw to, whatever it may be. Like, I'm excited for Justin Fields. Where are you at on Justin Fields, Cameron? Where's your level of excitement?
I would say it's got to be at least similar to my level of excitement for Kyler Murray last season, right? I know it didn't exactly pan out for Kyler, but we're looking at Justin Fields in his last 3 seasons, 18.4, 20.5, 18.6 fantasy points per game over those last 3 games that he started. You talk about in 2022 when he had 20 fantasy points per game, his top wide receivers on that team, Cole Kmet, 544 yards, Darnell Mooney, 493 yards, and Quivia, I can't even, what's Amon-Ra St. Brown's brother's name? Why can't I?
Equanimous.
Equanimous St. Brown, 323 yards. And their leading rusher was David Montgomery with 801 rushing yards. All right. So he doesn't even need more pieces. He's got Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, right? The dude's pretty much set as far as pieces go. And honestly, I don't know if I really want them to bring in more. I want them to force this guy to run because when he runs, he's dynamic. He makes plays happen. He puts up crazy fantasy points, and I think that's going to happen once again this year.
I don't quite understand the hate, and maybe some of the hate has been geared towards like Garrett Wilson. I'm like, oh, Garrett Wilson's going to be negatively impacted, and I don't want to copy paste DJ Moore in here, right? But it's like, I don't know, man. I do have a full year sample of the last time we saw Justin Fields throw into one dude in the receiving game. DJ Moore was a top 10 wide receiver that year. So I part of me is like, I don't want to overthink this. I think we're going to get to a point with Justin Fields this offseason where it's going to be that bell curve, right? Where it's like on the one end, you get like the caveman and it's like, oh, Justin Fields rushes a lot, therefore scores fantasy points. And you get the middle people where it's like, we're trying to galaxy brain it. And then on the other end, it's the, genius. And it's like Justin Fields rushes, he scores a lot of fantasy points, right? Like, I feel like that's going to be the narrative all offseason. So that's why I like this for Justin Fields. He gets an offense to himself. The money is committed to him. He's going to be out on the football field. Let's see some sparks happen in terms of fantasy points per game this season. Another quarterback that I think is a big, big winner, JJ McCarthy, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, not going to let my hometown bias seep into this too much, and mostly because I fully realize the smoke is thick, like 3 C's at the end of it, around Aaron Rodgers potentially signing with the Minnesota Vikings. I will say I don't totally buy that. I think there's enough other quarterback needy teams right now that would prefer the services of Aaron Rodgers. That would probably fork out more money to Aaron Rodgers than the Minnesota Vikings. I also don't know if Aaron Rodgers is the guy I want mentoring my new young quarterback who's just coming off of a season-ending injury. Sorry, don't see Aaron Rodgers as the best role model there for my rookie quarterback. That being said, why I'm excited about JJ McCarthy is that instead of re-signing Sam Darnold, the Vikings went out and just reallocated all their assets. They went out and signed a center along the interior offensive line and Ryan Kelly. They gave Will Freeze 5 years, 88 up to $88 million, I believe the contract was worth, at the guard position. Again, interior offensive line, which was the demise of the Minnesota Vikings last year. And then you still bring back Aaron Jones, which you two pointed that out to me with the cap increase this year. You know, it's essentially the same deal that you're giving Aaron Jones year over year here. So you give him another viable option in the run and pass game too. I just think they're trying to set JJ McCarthy up for so much success this year. And if they do bring in another quarterback, like, again, I don't think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I certainly don't think it's going to be Russell Wilson. But like, I know the Falcons said they're going to hold on to Kirk Cousins, keep him around.
Jeez.
But what if they cut him? Can I propose this? What if they cut him? And Kevin O'Connell says, "Great, Kirk, come back and show JJ McCarthy how to thrive in this system, just like you did when you were on track to have a borderline MVP season before your Achilles." Right? I think that could happen. And I think ultimately, I think this team is just trying to set up JJ McCarthy for success. The improvements along the offensive line just make him one of the biggest winners here because you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson to throw to. All he needed was actual time to throw the football and protect himself.
Yeah, you look at the last 3 seasons, Kirk playing 17, then 8 games, Darnold playing 17 last year. Each guy each year averaged at least 18 fantasy points per game. Obviously, we're not just going to, like you said, put JJ McCarthy in their shoes and say, okay, JJ McCarthy is good for at least 18 fantasy points a game. But if you're looking at a guy who's probably going to run a little bit more out of the 3, maybe not this first year, maybe it is a couple of years down the road from a dynasty perspective, it is going to be McCarthy. He's just going to grow with this offense. Like you said, offensive line's the best it's been. They still got those weapons on the outside. TJ Hawkinson back healthy. So there's really not much not to like. He's definitely a guy that is worth, if in redraft, taking a late round flyer on. Best ball, he's a great guy to put as your quarterback too. Right. So I think he's definitely the guy. If you're going to bet on somebody who's going to be a little bit lower in the draft, I think he's a great guy to bet on.
And Ty, tempering your hometown excitement as well. Where are you on JJ McCarthy? How big of a winner are we actually talking here? Because again, we talk about offensive line. The weapons are already there. I just can't state how significant it is that this dude finally got protection. That the quarterback of this team finally can feel protected.
Yeah, again, it's no coincidence that Sam Darnold's play went down when Christian Darrisaw got hurt, and then teams found that you just pressure the crap out of Sam Darnold, and not even pressuring, but it's sending blitz packages to confuse the offensive line, because the amount of times, again, as Vikings fans, that Dalton Reisner, Garrett Bradbury, and Ed Ingram are constantly looking in the backfield because they don't know what just happened right in front of their faces. So JJ McCarthy getting the upgrade in protection is huge. And I think there will be some people that will say that JJ McCarthy isn't ready because, he wasn't the immediate starter in year 1. I think a lot of people forget, though, that JJ McCarthy had a legitimate shot to be the QB1 in week 1 of his rookie year, if not for the injury. So with all of that, the team feels very comfortable. They've talked about the rehab and all that stuff with his injury too. Like, it really does feel like it's all systems go for JJ McCarthy to be the starter of this team. Just bring in Jameis Winston, because that is the ultimate mentor for a young QB. I'm just going to say.
Which I'll teach him to be bold and pushing the ball down the field, which, hey, I am all for. I also think it would just be fun to have a Jameis Winston Vikings jersey for the heck of it. Let's move on to some losers, though. We'll come back to some winners here. We got a whole other slew of winners coming up as well. Let's talk about some losers, though. And Cam, even though your excitement for Justin Fields is on the rise, your excitement for Breece Hall is actually on the decline. And you actually said, I'm actually kind of talking myself into Breece Hall being actually a pretty big loser.
And the reason that I'm out on Breece Hall really has a lot to do with Justin Fields. Over his career, Fields has averaged 8.36 rushing attempts a game, which is a 17-game pace of 140 a season. We saw Braylon Allen get 100 attempts last year. So you're just adding all that on top of it. In order for Breece Hall to sniff 250 carries this year, Jets would have to be top 6 in rushing attempts from last year's stats. So they'd have to have over 500 rush attempts. And that's without Braylon Allen getting more involved. And I see him continuing to get involved in this run game, especially with Breece Hall having career lows last year in yards per carry. And, I don't think they've done enough to make the offensive line better where I'm like, oh, yes, it's going to be, sunshines and rainbows. And then the last thing is the most targets a running back has had with Justin Fields in a season so far is 40 targets. Now, I know he has not had a Breece Hall. I know that it's been split backfield. So I'm not saying Breece is going to get 40, but when we're looking at a guy who had 76 targets last year, he had, I want to say, almost 90 this season before, who has relied heavily on this receiving work. And now you add into Justin Fields. If we see that come down at all, and he's in the 60s, he's in the 50s, genuinely, I'm a little concerned we could see almost a Najee Harris-esque year. Low touchdowns, not from last year, from his sophomore season in the NFL is the equation to Najee. But that's what I'm worried about. So I still am going to view Breece as a top 10 guy, but I think the path for him to be a top 3 running back once again, for me, is closed. I just don't see it happening this season. I don't think he's going to have the upside in this offense, and that's why I'm considering him a loser.
So the only counterpoint I have to that, I don't necessarily disagree with anything from like a rushing perspective. I think when you add what Justin Fields does with his legs, I think the team's rush attempts, you brought it up before we turn on the cameras, right? Where the Jets were dead last in rush attempts in the league last year.
Yeah.
I do think that changes this year, but that does come with the addition of Justin Fields' legs as well. So how much does it increase? TBD. The one thing I will counter with, though, is that over the last 2 seasons, Fields does have the highest checkdown rate at the league, 15.5%. So you at least have that going for Breece Hall. But again, part of that is also scheme and design you're in as well. Some of it is tendency, right? It's not like a totally 100% predictive metric of like, oh, well, Breece Hall is just going to rack up targets because Justin Field has the highest checkdown percentage in the league over the last 2 years, right? Like, you got to take everything into consideration, but that's at least one thing where I'm like, we're not going to get a crazy, 2023 Breece Hall where he was catching passes left and right, but I'm willing to at least hold out a little bit of optimism there. But Ty Cameron had mentioned, the top 3 window is definitely closed. I'm in agreement with that. Are you in agreement with that as well?
I am, unfortunately. Breece Hall has never really been the big touchdown guy, right? At least from a rushing perspective. His career high in rushing touchdowns is 5. He's added 3 or 4 in the receiving game the last 2 years. But again, that's the big question mark to all of this. Like, if the receiving game is going to take a hit, like we are expecting it to take a hit, something else has to kind of counteract that drop in fantasy point potential.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't see that in touchdowns. You're not going to get that from just getting 20 carries a game. And you're not going to get that really from rushing yards either, just because, again, you don't get as many points from rushing yards. So unfortunately, the days of top 3 are over. He's still going to be a really solid fantasy piece, in my opinion. I think it's just probably, we talked about Najee Harris kind of being that like fringe top 15 guy. He's definitely going to fall his way closer to the Najee Harris range than to being the top 5, top 3 guy that we had the hope for last year.
Right. Well, and even right now, there's drafts going on over on Underdog Fantasy right now, and the market is telling us they're valuing Breece Hall right at the running back 12-13 range, which I think is probably a much more fair expectation this year, even with the addition of Justin Fields. I think that's just a much more accurate picture of where we're at in terms of running back competition and what Justin Fields can and cannot provide for Breece Hall this season. Ty, let's talk about another quarterback because you're first loser here. I'm kind of curious to hear your case. I understand where you're coming from. There's other ways where I'm wondering if he's almost a net neutral, but Trevor Lawrence, your first big loser.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Jacksonville was pretty much in a bind this offseason because they needed to start saving salary cap, but like they're not really helping him out in any kind of way in my book. I mean, just a quick recap of all the offensive moves they've made so far this offseason. They cut Evan Ingram, who just signed with the Denver Broncos on Wednesday, March 12th. They traded Christian Kirk in the division to Houston. Then in free agency, they went out and signed a De'Ami Brown, Johnny Munt, and Hunter Long. And yes, you already have a Brenton Strange, but like PFF had De'Ami Brown ranked as the 18th best available receiver. And Munt and Hunter Long weren't even ranked in tight ends. And with all the pass protection talk that the new GM, James Gladstone, talked, at the combine, they signed Robert Hainsey from Tampa. So there's the Liam Cohen connection, and Patrick McCarry, nice little player, but Hainsey was the 10th best center and McCarry was the 8th best guard available. I think right now what Jacksonville did this offseason, sure, you can say it's neutral from the fact that like they use the 5-iron off the tee box instead of using their driver. But I think if you're Trevor Lawrence, with how your career has gone so far, yes, you got the bag, but like you need to start producing, and you're going to be asking a lot of this Liam Cohen system to really get you going just with the additions that they made. Because again, you're throwing to Brian Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington, Gabe Davis, and who knows if he's even going to be on the team because dude disappeared off the face of the earth last year. And also Brenton Strange. But then your offensive line, Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, and Anton Harrison. It's not great. It's not bad, but it's definitely not going to I don't see how that's going to help him out, really. And then your run game is Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. So, again, I think the Jaguars need a huge draft to kind of salvage whatever kind of help that they can give Trevor Lawrence, because I think right now they're going to be asking a lot of him this year.
Which is fair, and I do think this is a team, though. I think they're in play for Tet at 5. I know Tet's fallen down people's boards. It seems like he's continuously getting pushed down. I just think there's too many wide receiver needy teams at the top of the board that could have their eye on Tet McMillan. So whether that, like, I think the Patriots keep running out of options. I seriously think he's still in play at 4. But, the Jaguars could take someone there. They got pick 36 if a Luther Burden or a Emeka Ibuka falls out of the first round. That prime candidate to be scooped up there. I think there's more outs for this team than we may give credit for, but like, again, looking at free agency, the fact that they let go of, 2 of their top 3 pass catchers on the team and replace them with De'Ami Brown and a couple of backup tight ends and Brenton Strange. I get it how you can consider T-Law a loser. Cameron, I know you're a T-Law guy. We're all kind of T-Law guys here. We all still hold the faith for T-Law. Where are you at?
Yeah, I agree. It's just kind of they just didn't do anything, and after cutting a whole bunch of guys. So you really get worried, like Ty said, when you're looking at that of you're really counting on Brian Thomas being him. Like you're counting on him being a top 7. I do agree, but like he has to make that sophomore jump if this offense is going to work the way that you're hoping that it's going to work. You need Travis Etienne to bounce back. You need Tank Bigsby to take another step. You need one of these wide receivers to kind of figure it out. So you're asking a lot from a bunch of guys that, except for Brian Thomas, we just haven't seen it from, in recent years. So that's what worries me a little bit. It does feel like they paid the bad team tax a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Or in the last couple of years, and are just like, we're not going to do it. We're going to take who we can get. Hopefully we'll build the draft, and then we'll make people want to come play for us down the road. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it feels like Trevor Lawrence needs this year to go really well. Like otherwise people are going to be, we can't have him anymore. And what they're putting around him, you're putting a lot of faith in Liam Cohen and Brian Thomas right now.
I'm trying to figure out what the Liam Cohen balance is to all of this, right? Because I think we can look at all this and say, like, this stinks for Trevor Lawrence, but I'm also like, yeah, but you know what? He's got a much better coaching staff coming in as well. So like, I'm trying to figure out what the balance is and all of that. But like, if we're looking at this from like a pure free agency move perspective, the ins and outs, the in and out flow of the team and the players on this team, I can get how you can look at T-Law as a loser so far in free agency. the other guy, the last guy I want to talk about before we take a quick break here, I think this one's pretty obvious. I don't want to speak too much on this. It's George Pickens, and the equation is very simple on this one. The addition of DK Metcalf equals subtraction of targets for George Pickens. And like, we don't even know the quality of the targets that George Pickens is even left with. I mean, is it Aaron Rodgers? Like, I think he's kind of the front runner, but it's pretty murky with how much smoke there is everywhere with Aaron Rodgers right now. They're smoking New York. They're smoking Minnesota. They're smoking Pittsburgh. Is it Russell Wilson again? I'm like a little bit more optimistic about that because it is going to be literally, they may as well just change the name of Pittsburgh to Moonball City because that's all that's going to be thrown in Pittsburgh with George Pickens and DK Metcalf playing the same style of game, not phenomenal in contested catch situations, but will burn you down the field. Look, if it's Shadur Sanders at pick 21 in the draft, I'm not a fan of that. Rookie quarterback in cold weather, who's already been sliding on people's draft boards or questioning, how he's actually going to translate to a pro. Just a big loser because what we were banking on is like, well, no matter who your quarterback is, it's George Pickens and whoever they decide to add after that. Well, they added another guy and it's DK Metcalf who unfortunately plays the same game as George Pickens. So I've just got my concerns there. George Pickens, big loser for me thus far. I think his stock will take a relatively good hit once we look at fantasy drafts this year.
Yeah, it is a little concerning of what is the upside now for George Pickens, right? Where does he go from where he was? It's hard to see him taking a leap with DK on that team. It's also an Arthur Smith offense where we really just haven't seen pass catchers hit, their ceiling. I know people point back to AJ Brown and who was he playing with in Tennessee? They both had 1,000 yards. Could happen. I don't think it will. But I just think that the upside is so limited for both of them that I feel like both of them could be considered losers in the situation.
Yeah.
No matter the quarterback that they bring in.
Yeah, I was going to say, and DK Metcalf going from Seattle to Pittsburgh. Don't think Pittsburgh is necessarily a more fantasy friendly environment for him to exist in. Would you agree with that statement, Ty, or are you holding out a little bit of optimism here?
I think the best way to say it is that if I'm a George Pickens, manager, I'm really hoping for a trade. And the only problem is I don't really know if there's a destination where he's going to be the one. I think there's a lot of situations.
They're on like plan freaking L at this point.
It's not the worst idea, but I think if you're going to ask for a trade, right? Or like you're kind of dreaming of landing spots for Pickens and you're like, I want immediate fantasy kind of contribution from him. It's really going to be limited in terms of those places because most teams that are probably going to, could land a George Pickens are all going to be the rebuilding teams like in New England, New Orleans, maybe an interesting one just to get some another weapon for Derek Carr. But again, I think for George Pickens, your hope is that he gets traded because, again, like Cam was saying, the history of the Arthur Smith offenses, I do, and going into the last year of his contract, I think Pickens does get moved for a late day 2 pick in this draft, similar to how we see other skill positions get moved during the draft, just because teams miss out on certain receivers, certain pass catchers in the draft, and they're like, well, actually, you know what? We'll take a shot on Pickens and see what happens.
That's the hope you hold out for here, and there's been some buzz around that. I don't know when or if that will happen, but I think you're right. Like I was thinking through that then too, and I'm like, the only exercise that I can think through where I feel like maybe more optimistic if George Pickens gets traded is to a team like the Patriots, who are just literally dying for pass catchers. They're out here signing Mac Hollins. Like they can't get Drake. They can't get Drake May help if their lives depended on it right now. So like that's the one spot where if the Patriots step up and say, hey, we'll give you, whatever the deal is you're looking for George Pickens, and he goes to New England to be Drake May's one. Yeah, I'll hold out some hope there, but in the Steelers offense, absolutely a big loser by bringing in a guy like DK Metcalf. Let's take a quick break here, fellas. We'll be back with 3 more winners each and 3 more losers each afterwards. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. Covered 3 winners and 3 losers so far. Najee Harris, Justin Fields, JJ McCarthy, Breece Hall, Trevor Lawrence, George Pickens as 3 losers. Let's move on to some more winners here. Cameron, your second winner, Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers, too. You have Jacoby in your notes, but Brock Bowers. So we're just going to put Brock Bowers out there for the people. Big winner so far. Yeah, and you think the addition of Geno Smith here is very positive.
100%. I think it's the best addition you could have asked for as a Raiders fan in general. I think he was better than any of the quarterback free agents out there. He's proven over the last couple of years to be incredibly consistent as far as, completion percentage. I want to say he completed over 70% of his passes last season. Yeah, 70.4, which is great, especially if you're Brock Bowers and you're averaging about 10, 11 yards per reception. He's a guy who's going to find you over the middle. Jacoby Myers, same thing. At the very least, it beats Aiden O'Connell by quite a bit. But like I said, I truly think that this was the best quarterback upgrade they could have asked for overall. And when you got a guy like Brock Bowers, and now you add a coaching staff who's changing the culture, you add a guy like Geno Smith, the sky's really the limit for this guy.
Well, and think about if they add a Ashton Genty in the NFL draft this year, they get a good running back in this room to help relieve some pressure off the passing game as well. I think this offense really starts to open itself up then under Chip Kelly, who can play with tempo, who can play with pace. I mean, last time we saw Chip Kelly in the NFL, his offense led the team in plays. So that's just more opportunity for a Brock Bowers. And that's not, again, we're not going to copy paste the last time Chip Kelly was in the NFL because, that was many, many years ago at this point. But Brock Bowers, I do think with the important quarterback upgrade here to Geno Smith, it's just better than throwing Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell out on the field. Isn't it, Ty?
I guess. No, it is. It is. It is.
Wow.
It is. It is. Don't get me wrong.
Geno's not going to write you back here, dude.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I ever wrote to Geno in the first place, so I think we're okay there. I do have my hesitancies when it comes to Chip Kelly. I know that he did kind of evolve his game, not just from his time in Oregon and Philly as the head coach there, but going to UCLA, going to Ohio State, like his game did evolve, and obviously his game, meaning his scheme and his play calling and all that kind of stuff. That this team is going to want to win right away. So that means highly competitive games, like you say, Lucas, as well. You're going to try to get as many plays out of Geno as well, just because that's the kind of style that he runs. I don't know. I think it's just a weird vibe. Maybe I'm holding on too much to Philadelphia Eagles Chip Kelly, but I do need to remind myself Zach Ertz did have 75 catches in Chip Kelly's last year. So you know what? Yep. Maybe there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way, So look, Brock Bowers is still going to be a super elite tight end option. It'll be interesting to see where he goes in draft time, though, because that's ultimately going to make the difference for me.
I still think he's already a 1-2 turn guy. Mm-hmm. How high do we think he does create? Let's quick discuss that. Is he climb to being a top 10 guy?
I don't think so. I think he stays probably about 13 is probably where I think
13,
he's. I just
is where he's sitting.
I just don't think Geno does enough for the public as a whole.
Correct.
Whereas I think he should. Personally, I think that we should be very excited about Geno. I just think people are like, oh, this isn't, Matthew Stafford or something like that, where it's like, oh my gosh. But what you have to remember, because I've heard too, like, oh, Pete Carroll never used tight ends. Geno never threw to it. Brock Bowers is an elite tight end.
Probably Bowers the fanciest tight end that Pete Carroll has ever worked with.
My goodness, he makes Gerald Everett look like a peasant. This dude is beyond fancy. All right, like that's what we got to keep in mind. So yeah, I just think, and we can't sleep on Jacoby Myers too. I think Jacoby's been such a solid wide receiver 3 in lineups for so long that, maybe we see him creeping towards that top 24, 25 wide receiver at the end of next season.
He's on my dynasty team, so come send me offers for those of you that in this league. Come send me offers for Jacoby Myers.
I was gonna say
Hey, he was wide receiver 19 last year, I guess. So there you go.
I don't know if I'll prescribe to that narrative, but I digress. No, I think no matter how you look at it, the quarterback upgrade makes Brock Bowers and these wide receivers a winner. It's just makes your eyes bleed watching Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew attempt to throw to these guys without success. So, yeah, I think they can find success under Chip Kelly. I do think Brock Bowers does end up being a winner from the Geno Smith trade here. It took us so long to get to this player. Honestly, we probably should have just led with this guy, but Davante Adams is a Los Angeles Ram now, and as of this afternoon as well, Cooper Kupp was released, and this afternoon being the afternoon of Wednesday, March 12th. Probably the biggest winner of free agency, and it took us half the episode to get to him.
Yeah, I really don't think I need to explain this a whole lot. I mean, we're talking about an elite route runner, an elite separator,
Still
going to LA, pairing up with Puka Nacua and Sean McVay. I mean, that's really all I really need to say about it. Like, this is the kind of move you want to make if you're a receiver and you're already 32 and you're turning 33, right?
Yeah.
This is the perfect move that you want to make. Now, I still expect Puka to be the lead target or the lead target getter in this offense. That being said, I'm not going to be surprised if both Puka and Davante Adams have upwards of 140, 150 targets next year, just because your wide receiver 3, again, the projections say it's Tutu Atwell. And if it's not Tutu Atwell, it's Jordan Whittington.
Right.
If it's not him, I don't know who else it'll be. So
not Marcus Robinson anymore.
No, because that man's with the Niners. So Davante Adams, clearly the biggest. I feel like it's safe to say the biggest offensive winner,
yes.
Not like directly in, a player with direct that was directly impacted by a signing, because we've talked about like JJ McCarthy, right? Like the signings around him. But Davante Adams switching teams. This is going from the Jets to the Rams is as big of a jump as you can get in free agency.
What I like about this too is that you can start shifting Davante and Puka all over the formation now. Puka's been pretty much a perimeter guy throughout his first 2 years in the league, but now you can start shifting him inside if you want to. With Davante Adams creeping up there again, 32, 33. You can keep him on the inside if you really just want to keep him on the inside and watch him go to work against poor cornerback threes, because, again, you named it, Ty. I don't think this dude is washed. He still looked good last year. Again, maybe previously elite, but he is still a very, very good route runner and a very, very good separator at the minimum. I mean, this is just a dream for not only Davante Adams, the NFL player, but for Davante Adams in fantasy football as well. I mean, how high does he climb now, Cameron, because of this?
He's got to be pretty high. Like you said, last year, 17-game pace, 103 receptions, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. Sounds pretty good to me. I'm not saying he's going to have that this year. I'll give you a hot take, though. Here's my really hot take. Davante Adams leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns next year. That's my hot take.
I do like that. Puka's not a red zone guy.
No, and
not as big of a red zone guy, I should say.
And so that's my hot take. If you wanna bring that one to the bank, go ahead. But I'm very high on Davante. I have been high on Davante Adams. In Oakland, I was still pretty high on him last year with after he got traded to the Jets. Ty's looking at me like I just lied, thinking that I wasn't.
Who plays in Oakland?
Las Vegas, whatever, same thing. Nobody goes to the games. I'm just kidding.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, I think he's a guy he's gonna be a wide receiver 2 at the worst in points per game. I think he's probably a top 15, maybe even pushing top 12 guy on this Rams offense next year.
I'll let you know when the odds open on that. Davante Adams leading the league in touchdowns. I don't have any odds up right now, but that's worth the small sprinkle. I don't hate that at all. So. My second winner, ironically enough, this is my other winner is more so addition through subtraction here, and it's Jaylen Warren, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You get rid of Najee Harris. The Steelers then, because of that, went out and placed a second round tenure on him, or tender, not tenure, a second round tender on Warren. Basically, it guarantees Jaylen Warren a 1 year salary, 1 year contract of $5.83 million, or 110% of his previous salary, whichever is bigger of those two. So the contract that he was given, as you can see on the screen, if you're watching over on YouTube, is that $5.34 million contract. And so the only help that the Steelers have given him in free agency thus far is Kenneth Gainwell on a 1 year deal, who is essentially like a Walmart clone of Jaylen Warren. So at this point, maybe they add somebody in the draft, like a Caleb Johnson. Maybe they take a shot on Judkins in the second round. If they add another power back, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, as we're looking at it right now from free agency, Jaylen Warren's a winner because the Steelers are saying, yeah, we want to keep you around. We're going to keep utilizing you while we'll go ahead and let Najee take a contract elsewhere. So Jaylen Warren, as of right now, has this backfield, to himself. Again, I won't be surprised if they add some extra legs as well in this room. But Kenneth Gainwell ain't nothing to be afraid of right now, and he basically just plays the same role as Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, you got to call him a winner. They didn't. There wasn't a ton to bring in.
Right.
So he felt like he probably wasn't, and it felt like Najee was gone for sure. Hopefully they just continue to bolster the offensive line through the draft. They kind of leave the running back position for a little bit later. You can get a little lucky with Jaylen Warren taking over a Austin Eckler-ish role, right? That's the hope and the dream for Jaylen Warren. Like you said, could be crushed, with a early draft pick on a running back. But I think at the same time, even if they bring in a rookie, we're going to see more Jaylen Warren this year than we have in years past.
I believe in our free agent prediction episodes, Ty, you brought up Nick Chubb going in division to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you not?
I did.
So you still, there's still momentum here for that.
Dreams
yeah,
alive.
a little bit. I'll also victory lap. I was the only one that said that Najee's going to the Chargers. Actually, no.
You did. I know.
Didn't I say that?
They were plan B.
Yeah, you did.
No, I said the Bears.
You did say
yeah,
the
you
Bears.
said the Bears, loser. Anyway,
L7 Weedy.
Do you guys see the Ian Hartitz tweet about the Kenneth Gainwell signing?
No,
It's
now we
literally
gotta put it up
just
for the
two.
people.
It's literally just two highlights of when the Steelers and the Eagles played each other. And there's like, the Steelers saw this and said, "Holy crap, we need Kenneth Gainwell." Hilarious. But again, not to ignore the Nick Chubb kind of layup that you gave me there, but like what's important to me about Jaylen Warren is that they put a second round tender on him.
Yep.
That's like, not only did you want him back, but that is significantly more than what some of the guys were going to get in the market as well.
Yes.
So they believe in Jaylen Warren, which makes you believe that like if they do sign a Nick Chubb or they draft a rookie, they kind of see Jaylen Warren as a 1A back in this offense.
Yeah, that second round tender is so important, and people will just kind of shrug that off. But that actually displays like a high amount of trust of like, you are a 1B at the very worst for us in this offense. So big winner here. Again, not that there was a ton to pick from in this free agent running back class, but not that they still can't add somebody. But again, at this very moment, it is Jaylen Warren. He has the backfield, and Kenneth Gainwell will come and take his 2 snaps every game like the Eagles gave him against the Steelers this year. Let's do one more round of losers here, fellas, and then we'll call it a day. Cameron, your final loser. Yeah, this one kind of stings a little bit because I was hoping for a little bit of Jalen McMillan upside myself here, but Chris Godwin comes back, definitely makes Jalen McMillan a loser.
Yeah, definitely. He was climbing in these dynasty ranks. He was as high as wide receiver 35 in dynasty, ahead of guys like he was ahead of Tyreek Hill, Khalil Shakir, Jerry Jeudy. He was right behind Jaden, like one spot behind Jaden Reed. Feels like the dream is pretty dead, at least until Mike Evans is gone. For Jalen McMillan, as far as fantasy value, obviously you can still carve out a role as the wide receiver 3 on this offense. but you're not really interested in that if you're taking him as a fantasy wide receiver. So if you bought the Jalen McMillan stock this offseason, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It feels like he's just another depth piece. You're going to put it right next to Dontavian Wicks on your bench dynasty.
That's some.
I feel
boy.
I feel like you're telling yourself that more than anything, even though you don't have Jalen McMillan.
He secretly, it was a diss to secretly increase Dontavian Wicks' value for anyone in our league who's
why
listening.
Why are you talking down about one of the Packers' 7 wide receiver ones right now? All right, I mean,
Dontavian the dude has feet for hands. That's
why. Say one of these dudes can catch the football, the other one can't.
He has been getting hand massages all off season. He's going to have pillows, and he is going to be catching so many passes. Dontavian Wicks breakout. Here we come. The next Jerry Jeudy.
Ty, Cooper Kupp got cut today. I'm just gonna hard transition on that.
Good call.
Yeah, loser stinks, man. But this was unfortunately not a long time coming, but it was in the cards, and it manifested itself today.
I mean, not only did you know that like it was a very legit reality that he might not be on the Rams when it was first announced that they were looking to trade him. But as soon as the Davante Adams news hit, you're like, yeah, Cooper Kupp is toast.
Yeah.
Like there's no chance he's coming back. And what makes Cooper Kupp a loser is that you look at potential landing spots. It's pretty bleak for Cooper Kupp. I mean, he joins right in with the Keenan Allens and Tyler Lockett's of the world, not just from age perspective, but from the potential options that they're going to have with the market. If you want the most production out of Cooper Kupp, you're going to be landing on a rebuilding team like New England, the Jets, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Vegas, Seattle, Carolina, New Orleans. I don't think that they're going to want to spend money on a guy like Cooper Kupp who will probably ask for money, right? And if he wants a competitive team that can push for a Super Bowl, he's likely the wide receiver 3 on teams like Cincinnati, but they're not spending money. Houston, Detroit. I know people are kind of fantasy booked him to Minnesota to reunite with Kevin O'Connell, but like
that's not happening.
I know, right? Like the best
clip us later if it does, but it's not.
Yeah, right. Like roast me in the comments if it actually happens. But the best spots for Cooper Kupp really are Denver and the Chargers, and those teams have not committed to investing.
The Dallas Cowboys? Get him next to CeeDee Lamb?
Jerry's spending max $3 on Javonte Williams. He's value hunting on non-values.
I agree. It's not as likely, but
I think
I was waiting for you to name them. I'm like, where are they coming in?
No, so here's the thing. I was looking at all the teams. I kind of like listed out like possibilities, and I had Dallas, and I was like, Dallas is the one team that doesn't fit in any of these kind of categories, so I'm just not going to talk about them.
They just don't spend.
They don't spend.
They're handcuffed too. I mean, you got Michael Parsons coming up on a contract too. You got to pay him.
Mm-hmm. So again, Cooper Kupp obviously getting released. He had it so good in LA. The injuries just ruined his time there. And now we're taking just a major step backwards in terms of intrigue, really, for a player that had it so good.
Where does he land? Quick predictions from everybody here. A lot of us have the Texans.
He's a Bengal after they trade T. Higgins or Jamar Chase.
Oh, stop that. You're in fantasy land yourself right now.
Woo!
No, you just want chaos to happen.
I would love chaos.
Patriots, my guess.
I'm going to go Patriots.
Josh McDaniels will be able to resist another white slot wide receiver.
I think you mean sneaky athletic.
Oh my word.
But like I like jokes aside, like I do think that's where he probably ends up. The one team that can afford to pay him that desperately needs wide receiver help, that can be a savvy vet for Drake May. I do think he'll end up a Patriot.
I mean, it's the new Adam Thielen where you've literally got just one team that's willing to pay you.
Right. Where did you throw out a team, Ty?
No.
Not going to.
Is there a team in Cancun? That's not. No, never mind.
Wow, you think he should just retire?
Nah, I think he should go to Jacksonville.
Oh, there you go. That's not a bad option either. I don't hate that.
No.
Liam Cohen could do some fun things with him.
They already have a slot wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. He cannot get to Jacksonville.
Do you want to pigeonhole Brian Thomas at the slot for his entire career? You're doing that man a disservice.
No, but he's got to go in. You can't put him there. No, I disagree. Terrible idea.
So he should go to Seattle.
There you go.
JSN, there it is.
So you just cut Tyler Lockett.
Well, JSN's not on my fantasy team anymore, so it's perfect. All right.
DeAndre Hopkins, final loser. I know what people are going to say. Oh, no, but he's on the Ravens now. They're so good. Yeah, he's going to do a lot of winning. But he is definitely a free agency loser here. It's just, look, we're past the prime of DeAndre Hopkins. We're past him being this reliable fantasy football asset. He's going as like the wide receiver 83 on Underdog right now. Like, I don't think this changes anything for him because this is still an offense that we get so fed up with during the season of why can't you feed Zay Flowers the football? And this is a team too. I got to pull up the number here to make sure it's accurate. They ran 12 personnel at the 5th highest rate in the league last year. That is 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end sets. I would be surprised if he's actually splitting those snaps with Rashad Bateman. Yeah. Like I'm not like Rashad Bateman, fine little player still, good little player. I don't see a world where DeAndre Hopkins is this solidified, locked in wide receiver 2 for a team that already has Derrick Henry and just wants to run the ball down your throat if they're able to, because their offensive line has been so stinking good and Derrick Henry has been so stinking good and Lamar Jackson is so stinking good. And loser. I don't care. Like, if he went to the Chargers or something, great. I think you get a perimeter asset alongside Ladd McConkey. Might not give you elite fantasy numbers, let alone very good fantasy numbers. He might just give you fine fantasy numbers, but on the Ravens, have fun ring chasing, dude. Like, proud of you. I hope he does get his ring because that's what this move reeks of.
Yeah, even if he is the true wide receiver 2, I don't care. I don't think it matters for fantasy.
I don't think it matters.
I don't think he's relevant. You know, I mean, there's 2 teams wide receivers go to die. It's Tennessee, Andre Johnson, Julio Jones, or Baltimore, Odell Beckham, Des Bryant.
I was going to say,
and he's already made it through 1. There's no way he makes it through 2. So I think this is the end of the road for DeAndre Hopkins, and he's just hoping for a ring.
You want to add on to the DeAndre Hopkins eulogy here, Ty?
No. No. It is what it is.
It is what does your no mean? Does your no imply that you're holding out hope yet? Or does your no imply you just don't want to bury the guy?
My no is that, like, I can't get a grip with my Zay Flowers takes, and then DeAndre Hopkins joins the team, and my Rashad Bateman shares in Dynasty are all crying right now. So
you're mourning.
I don't know.
You're actually mourning. Yeah. So while we're out here mourning DeAndre Hopkins' career, you're actually seeing DeAndre Hopkins as the murderer here. You're having an identity crisis.
So you're being selfish right now.
No, because let's say I was where you guys were at when the dude went to Tennessee.
All right.
So I've been down that path. I came out on top, and then this happened, and now I'm right back to where I was.
Poor time.
Hey, look, DeAndre, I really do hope you get a ring. Great guy. Have fun ring chasing in Baltimore. Probably won't be drafting too many more of you this year. Oh, man. If you want more fun, entertaining fantasy football content, you want to laugh along with us a little bit more, 3 dudes who love fantasy football, make sure you subscribe here. Turn on that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest videos are up. I promise you'll love being a part of the fellowship. All we do, post entertaining fantasy football content for you all. Dynasty in the offseason, NFL draft here as we continue to creep closer to the end of April. Then we'll really get into redraft content for you all as well once we get into mid-May and all throughout the offseason. You can follow us on the socials, FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. I am at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlon FFF for Cameron, Tyler_Plath for Ty. I realize now in these outros, I say, you can follow us on the socials, FF Fellas on Twitter. And then when I come to our personals, I actually say X. I don't know why that is. It's so rehearsed at this point now.
Inconsistent.
Yeah. You know me. They call me Lucas, Mr. Inconsistent Wenzel. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll be back. We'll be back next week with some players that we believe the public is valuing all kinds of wrong in dynasty formats. And I'll leave you with that. We'll see y'all next week. Deuces.
Deuces.
Deuces.